Gannon here, back again with another one of my Star Trek reviews. Today we are going to be reviewing Star Trek Discovery penultimate episode before the season finale, episode 12, season 4, this one titled Species-10. This episode actually came out 10 minutes before the Picard episode, and because this is only Picard episode 2, I decided to prioritize reviewing Discovery first today, because obviously it's extremely important. 10C is being revealed, or at least 70% of 10C has been revealed. A lot is left up to the imagination. Star Trek did something very toxic today after the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer dropped. Just a couple minutes after it dropped, they released the trailer for Strange New Worlds, and I am going to do a fair bit of Discovery criticism today. Fair warning, it was a good episode. I really liked the episode. It is a very good episode in the context of Discovery Season 4, but they released that Strange New Worlds trailer. Boy, I really hope that the future is bright for Star Trek. After that season premiere of Star Trek Picard, and after seeing that trailer for Strange New Worlds, I've been literally waiting what feels like my whole life for Strange New Worlds. I hope it's good. It has to be good, because Discovery and what we experience in this episode, like I said, in the context of a single episode, it's really solid, but in the context of an entire season, it is definitely just, you know, got the reoccurring problems and the reoccurring criticisms that I have all the time about season 4 of Discovery. But with all that being said, I will do the Picard review after, you know, I get some sleep. I'm going to wake up, upload this, give it a little bit of time to marinate, and then I'm going to go do that Picard review. So in the meantime, let's talk about Burnham and the gang and how they're going to interact with Species-10, aka floating space whale tyrannids that can use water-style jutsu. Alright, let's get into it. This episode starts off with the Discovery approaching the hyperfield. Species-10 is not responding to traditional hails, and the bare metallic skin of the hyperfield lays dormant, unreactive, looking like a giant decorative egg. It's very impressive, the size and the scale of the hyperfield. Since time is of the essence, they come up with a contingency plan to apply hydrocarbons to the hyperfield via some dots in attempt to communicate with Species-10. General Ndoye, like every other plan that has been suggested so far, she doesn't like it, and she is always super concerned with Earth, and also just be prepared for her to go ultra traitor in this episode. Zora makes a comment about how something about her function seems off and that she should get it checked out considering the stakes of the mission. Because Zora is a computer with mental health issues, they just assume that she needs to speak to Culber and that she doesn't need an engineer. A little bit goofy, maybe Stamets should have offered to take a look at her or something, but I guess Zora is so sophisticated that she can just, to a degree, given enough time, take care of herself. Can Culber be more than a therapist this season? He doesn't feel like a real ship's physician sometimes. He really just talks way too much about his own feelings, and he talks way too much with others about their feelings, to a point where the mental health message of the season just seems a little bit saturated. I would like for somebody to actually get injured so that Dr. Culber can go and fix them like an actual ship's doctor, because while he is taking the role of a ship's counselor this season, it's all he's been doing. Again, it's just tiresome. The dots then spume the hydrocarbons onto the hyperblanket, which arouses the hyperblanket, and in response, the hyperblanket makes sexual advances onto both the dots and to Discovery, the stiff metal sheet of the hyperfield becoming almost oceanic. A Naruto water-style jutsu comes out and swallows everybody whole, and then from that point on, the rest of the episode, they refer to this cocoon casing that they're flying through the hyperfield in as an orb. Also, this orb is disabling key systems so they can't use their shields or weapons or anything shisty. This episode revolves around Burnham and the Discovery gang attempting to talk to Species-10 and save the day, all while Tarka tries to ruin everything all the time. Jett Reno was kidnapped in the last episode, so we just get to see a bunch of solid Book and Reno interaction, and it starts off with Reno making a request for a stick of black licorice to fix her blood sugar. She really wants to use the licorice as a conductor to make her communicator work later in the episode. At first, it's speculated that the 10C is being all chill because they've made the effort to talk to them via pheromones, but upon inspection, it's totally possible 10C could just see the Disco Gang as nothing more than a bunch of primitive monkeys instead of sophisticated human beings like we perceive them to be. This episode appropriately has a crazy emphasis on xenoanthropology and actually actually discussing some good nerdy science when it comes to First Contact, which is refreshing to see, and in my opinion, it's just good Star Trek. Like, that's what Star Trek is all about right there, baby. Meeting and trying to understand alien species no matter how weird, and using nerdy science to do so. Back on Book's ship, him and Reno are having this great heart-to-heart. It is really good. Everything Reno does is so sincere and entertaining, and we all love her and everyone knows it. She shares a compelling story about how she kept a young ensign alive on the brink of death for what she believes to be selfish reasons, because he had the same eyes as her wife that had died. This young ensign basically had huge burns, and he was begging to be put out of his misery. Jett Reno insisted that it was her duty to keep him alive, kept him alive for way too long. He died after 15 days in what I assume to be agony. Then she tells Book that Book is also a hurt person, and he's doing all of this because he can't see clearly, he's hurt, and he's doing it for kind of selfish reasons. Also, it is revealed that Cleveland Booker is Book's name because he inherited it from a courier that he once respected and trusted. It would be cool if we got some sort of well-made flashback about that particular courier, something with a little bit of budget in it, something that made us appreciate Book a lot more as a person, giving him some depth and backstory to him. Except with just the current lameness and standards they have for Quajan lore, I doubt that that's ever going to happen. I'm just actually wishing for too much at this point. There's one damn episode left, and we haven't even really seen the 10C in their entirety. Speaking of that, 10C appears. It looks like a scary, menacing figure at first. It doesn't look like it, but it does remind me of the fake wizard from The Wizard of Oz and how it's supposed to be menacing. A large space bug whale that we can just barely see, spew-cooming alien, pheromones everywhere, and flashing bright lights to attempt to communicate with the Discovery crew. After Michael Burnham and her mains struggle to communicate with 10C, they call a meeting of the random Bridge Andes, because when professionals in the top of their field fail to understand something, sometimes it can be good to get an outside perspective from pilots and comms officers. This was a poor excuse, by the way, at giving the new Lieutenant Christopher some screen time. You can barely give your original cast a good amount of screen time. Stop adding in new people that don't matter. I don't care what Lieutenant Christopher thinks. I'm still waiting 4 seasons for them to quench my thirst for more Commander Bryce and Reese action. And they even left one of them behind to like totally not even participate in this very important integral part of the season. So that is just another silly thing that they've done. I'm not going to get into the details, but with inspiration from the bridge crew, they managed to conjure up a bootleg way to communicate with Species-10C. But what I will say, it's very nerdy, very Discovery-esque, and it's very nice to see. But it is just so criminal how I wish Tilly was there in that scene. Like, why isn't she there? It would have made the scene 10 times better. I'm watching this, I'm seeing them be so sciencey and nerdy, and they're all interacting and getting ideas from each other, and this is just the perfect scene for Tilly. It's what she's made for, and I just really wish she was there, and it's absolutely ridiculous that she's not. I really like the xenoanthropology of this episode. It's very emphasized. It's very good. Dr.Hirai also behaved like Dr.Hirai. I'm actually becoming quite content with this character at this point, because Dr.Hirai doesn't try to go above and beyond to impress me as a character, nor does he underwhelm me. He just is a solid dude, for real. However, he did blatantly gaslight General Ndoye this episode and made her more anxious, which probably is the reason she came to the decision to help Book and Tarka escape the org by releasing plasma from one of the Discovery's warp nacelles. Jett Reno continued to convey to Book that Tarka is bad news, and what they're doing is wrong, and on top of that, she just comes to the conclusion that Tarka is lying about everything, and that he's really a selfish, homicidal maniac whose plan won't work at all, and it will probably get everybody, like Cold War, destroyed. Everybody dies. Mutually assured destruction. Book attempts to stop Tarka, but then Tarka defeats him with the power of autism, and the Chad Buckler cannot touch the Virgin Tarka when he's covered in his super dope, awesome force field. You cannot overcome my style. So at this point in the episode, it seems like it's Tarka's train now. Also, I really like Sean Doyle's performance in this episode when he's having his Joker moment. After successfully communicating with the 10C to a primitive degree, they send an orb into the shuttle bay and morphs into a sliding door that matches one you would find on a starship. President Rillick instructs Dr.Hirai to stay behind because she doesn't like him, of course, and General Nadoya has to stay behind so she can perform her espionage. When they enter the orb, Species-10C recreates the Bridge of Discovery, which they assume they did to make it a more comfortable space for the Disco diplomats. Aboard the orb, Species-10C is able to communicate with Michael and Bunch via the use of matter manipulation, showing them a copy of the isolytic weapon used to destroy the DMA with implications of curiosity. They want to know why it was destroyed. They use the feelings of dread they felt when their home planet was destroyed with the pheromones, and Species-10C was like, okay, I kind of get what's going on here, except not really, because Tarka is here to ruin everybody's good time! We still have one more episode left, so no way was this going to go completely smoothly. Species-10C turns out to be mega chill, but Tarka leaps away and damages their defenses with the intention of, like I said before, pretty much taking everything out. The whole hyperfield, potentially Discovery, and the repercussions of this happening is definitely probably going to destroy Earth, Vulcan, and many more Alpha Quadrant planets. This episode then ends off with Reno finally getting communication to Captain Burnham, explaining the dire situation that they're in, and we're left on this nasty cliffhanger. Also, Species-10C just teleports everybody back to the Bridge of Discovery. They don't annihilate them immediately, which leads me to believe that Species-10C is super extra chill. They have no idea that the DMA was probably going to destroy Quajon. Also, it's probably not even their fault. For all we know, it could have been Tarka up to this point, just manipulating everybody so that he can go and see his friend in that alternate universe. Okay, now, my final opinions on this episode is that this episode was very good for Season 4 Discovery standards. However, I noticed something in this episode that I just have a huge gripe with, and it's a reoccurring theme about the season. I honestly think that the Discovery writers for this season did a bad job. They're actually doing a bad job. Like, it is subpar, it is mediocre. There is no well-written plot twists or any interesting plot devices in this season. Every episode, every time an event happens, I can almost just know immediately what's going to happen next. There's no twists and turns at all. It's very disappointing in a way. Do you remember in previous seasons of Discovery when they had Ash Tyler becoming like a Klingon sleeper agent, and he had an illegitimate Klingon bastard son, and they had to murder and assassinate, or make it seem like Ash Tyler was murdered and decapitated in front of the whole Klingon Empire to legitimize L'Rell's stake in the Klingon Empire, and it was actually really freaking epic. Do you see them doing anything like that anymore? The only thing that Discovery knows violence-wise this season is just them killing off NPCs that are aboard Discovery and sending them into an oblivion. And then there was also that one dude who died aboard a space station, and then I think a co-op Mulat's sister, I think, killed a couple people, but damn, there was just nothing interesting going on. Everything that happened, I knew what was going to happen. Like, Tarka was just going to be provoked until he had some Joker moment, and because Tarka is a nerd and doesn't have hands, he's just going to use force fields. He's going to get away with everything because that's how tech dudes do it. There's no interesting plot devices in this episode. Honestly, the coolest thing that Species-10C did in this episode, by the way, that made me intrigued about them was when they created that orb space and they made it seem like the Discovery Bridge. But at the same time, while I'm admiring that scene, I'm also thinking in the back of my head that they did that, honestly, for budget reasons. It's so much easier for them to just copy and paste the Discovery Bridge right there, put a filter over it, and this is the meeting room for 10C. This season just reeks of fucking dollar store, Walmart-ass season of Discovery. Are they ripping the budget from the show? Did the haters actually get to this show? Did they convince Alex Kurtzman and the bunch that Discovery, it doesn't deserve money? I mean, maybe they saw the script for the season and they're like, bro, we're not gonna give you any money for this. This thing is actually mid. So I don't know who to blame here. Is it the funding, or is it really the writer's room in Michelle Paradise? This episode was good, but you have to think about it in the context of the entire season. There's way too much filler. This whole like appreciation that I get from them having a good first contact with 10C, this didn't need to be extended all season like you tried to make it a Xindi War Arc season. You guys aren't good enough to write something like that. You could have made this Species 10C, this whole plot, you could have literally made it half the season and given us some other plot line for the rest of the other season. But you guys are not smart enough. I think you're a little bit lazy, and in the context context of the production, which you guys have committed to, I just don't think that it's like sustainable at this point. I don't think you can keep on giving us what you gave us in season 1 and 2 of Discovery. I don't know if it's sustainable for future seasons, and that's why I have such a disconnect when I watch this one, is because it's just so flat. It's like season 1 and 2 of Discovery. It's like a fresh soda you just cracked open, and this one is like a soda that has been left out for 2 days. It's flat as f. And anytime there's just a little fizzle of light, I have to get excited and give them props for it. When really, this is mediocre. I should be giving you guys way more props. This show should be invoking way more feelings. It used to be your flagship show. I used to love it, but now I'm very, very worried for the future. I'm very worried for what the ending of this show is going to look like. I mentioned last review, it's only been reviewed for 10 episodes next season. If they've been giving us 12 or 13 episodes this season and they pump it with filler and they can't even fill up the space and time they have with good content, then bro, what are they gonna do with 10 episodes? I'm very worried. I'm very worried. This episode gets a 6 out of 10. It doesn't deserve any more than that. It's a good episode, and I'll give it credit where the credit is due, and I'll be honest in the context of this review, but in the context of the whole season, Discovery is not doing great. We have to be honest with ourselves here. Discovery is not doing great. But with all that being said, I had a really hard time recording this video today. I have a really hard time focusing. For some reason, my thoughts and everything's very jumbled, so I'm very happy that I made it through. Hopefully, I didn't do too terrible of a job. If you enjoyed the video, though, I would be very flattered if you were to subscribe to the channel. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers right now, and when I do get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to get a neck tattoo. So if you want to see me potentially embarrass myself, be sure to slap that big red button. If you would like to discuss anything that we discuss on the channel, you can join my Discord. The link's in the description of every video. If you have anything you want to share with me, please leave it down in the comments below. I love YouTube comments. They're my favorite thing in the whole world. Going to review the episode of Picard when I get some sleep and I wake up. I'm going to do that as soon as I wake up. I'm going to make a post about it, so if you'd like to watch that as well, feel free to do so. And with all that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Hopefully, we do have better Star Trek on the horizon. And I hope you all live long and prosper. Have a good one.